I did an album for Shenandoah National Park in 1997 called Here on This Ridge, and they are still selling the CD in their shops. That's one of and Colonial Williamsburg is, and Jamestown, and there are very few CDs in shops anywhere in the world, so I am amazed that they're buying wholesale from me. I'm one of the only CD wholesale distributors left in the world, for what it's worth, but I'm glad they still have it in their shops. And made a number of pieces. I did a version of Shenandoah with improv like that, but with a bunch of different instruments. It was ensemble, but similar approach. And I also wanted to really present the program of the park, which is the Blue Ridge, the people living there, the nature of the Blue Ridge, and so forth. And at the time that I was working on it in 1995, 96, 97, I found that they were reestablishing the peregrine falcon on the Blue Ridge. And you'd go up on the high mountains and there would be police tape, do not enter, because they were protecting the nesting sites. And then one time I went up on Stony Man Mountain and sat up on top, and I saw a peregrine falcon leap off a ledge and catch the updraft out of Page Valley like a hang glider and scream in what sure seemed like delight. It's like, just floating out over there. And I thought, I want to depict that, and I'll use a bamboo flute with a pentatonic improvisation, for those who recognize that term. And I use this bamboo flute made in Virginia. I don't want to talk too much, but the guy who makes them used to go into Florida yards to get people's bamboo, and he would clear it out, and then he would bring it back and make these wonderful flutes. His name is Rob Yard. Destiny. And I asked him, I said, did you make that name up? And he said, no, I'm from the Yard family of master gardeners at Butchart Gardens in British Columbia. Whoa. Anyway, okay, all that. Okay, the first piece is called Falcons Among Crags. The second piece I'm going to follow, they're both very brief, is a pentatonic improvisational piece called My Thoughts Linger There. I live in these wonderful estuaries of southeastern Virginia, have gone kayaking with the Carsages and all that when they lived down there, and yet I was born in West Virginia, and the mountains are in my blood, and I wish I were up there all the time, and so I'm always trying to get up to the mountains too. I like the north, but I'm going to try to get up to the high peaks this week. That's where so the second piece is called My Thoughts Linger There. Thank you. You know I used an effect on that flute. There have been people that sometimes come up and say, what kind of flute is that makes that amazing sound? No, it's not just the flute. Anyway, it's called a regenerating ping pong delay at a half second. Since we're still at Shenandoah National Park, I guess, sort of, I'm going to share one called Big Meadows Twilight. And someone here actually knows one of my students who recorded it on an album. It's Big Meadows Twilight, yeah. And this is the first piece I composed on this dulcimer with my new recording technique. And I actually wrote the piece to teach myself a technique I had in mind, and I felt it coming into place as I played it. But how many people have been to Big Meadows in Shenandoah National Park? Oh my, what? I see 3 hands. Okay. It's a high, if you don't know that it's at 3,600 feet above sea level, it might just look like a meadow, but it's actually a mountaintop meadow that for many centuries was controlled, burned by the, whatever you call them, Native Americans. I'm a Native American, so I don't like that term. I was born in America. Native means we were born there, So I would call it First Peoples, First Nations people, that type, or indigenous, original. They burned it off and hunted deer up there, high on the mountain for centuries, and the Park Service still does that. They still burn it off every year, every couple of years, which is kind of neat. And it's this wonderful, idyllic place with little trees here and there, deer standing around, tall grass, and little marsh areas. And really high on the mountains, high for Virginia. And so I'm going to play Big Meadows Twilight, and I think I want to follow that with a newer piece of mine I haven't yet recorded called Treasured Hope. And it's meant to express the feeling of hope. And when I was composing it, I thought, what in the world can I do to introduce it and maybe do an interlude or whatever to really make it come together as a composition and not just be a tune? And after a couple years of frustration, it works with hope, doesn't it? And I ended up with depression. I take the tune and make it depressing. So we start with depression in a minor key and then do the hope and then fall into another bout and then get back to the hope. So maybe you'll be able to hear that in it. Thank you. Thank you. I am not a perfectionist, but certain notes really ought to be there. You know, sometimes like, oh, my hand's going. Yeah. So a little more fluid. Let me go ahead and mention, you all probably know the difference. I don't know who everybody is here. You know the difference between a hammer dulcimer and a mountain dulcimer, right? If you play a hammer dulcimer, you have to deal with people coming up and saying, what is that instrument, you know? And you try to explain to them, and as soon as they hear the word dulcimer, they think, oh, of course, a dulcimer, yeah. My uncle made one of those from a kit, and he has it hanging in his living room. And they're looking at this thing, you say, he has one of those things hanging in your living room? Yeah, he has one of those, and they say, oh, no, the wavy one. Yeah, that's not the same instrument. They're different, you know. But a lot of us who play one play the other. And when I decided to play mountain dulcimer, I decided I'm not going to become a virtuoso with finger style and chording and all these types of things. I'm going to stay pretty much with my Scots-Irish roots of droning, you know. And so I mostly drone. And I have a few, one thing, you know, I do a few tunings. If you play mountain dulcimer, one of the things that's handy, and of course this is what I said to the people in Independence, Missouri. I said, you know, if you want to learn a new tuning and you really don't want to have to keep retuning your instrument all the time, this is a need. You have a need to buy another dulcimer, you know. So I have two of them here. They're both tuned about the same. I'm thinking, what would be, there are many options. I think I'm going to lower this. I'm going to lower it from DAD to DGD. Traveling, I can't have all my, here. That puts it in the key of G instead of the key of D, and you can still play on the melody strings and on the bass strings with the melody, and so it varies back and forth. I'm going to do some 3 Appalachian folk hymns that are still in the modern hymnals in many churches, and a lot of people don't know they're Appalachian folk hymns. But they're the old shape note folk songs that are from the British Isles, and I'm going to play 2 different ones, Nettleton and Beach Spring, Beach. You can picture a stream with a little spring coming out on a beach beside the overhanging sod from the mountains or whatever. Both of which are used with the words, come thou fount of every blessing. And I just recently made 3 versions of those on YouTube. If you're interested, go to my YouTube channel, where I recorded just 2 dulcimers, this one and this one, playing it as a duet sort of. And then I did one with gathering other instruments joining in until there were 8 of them. And then and with video of all of those, so it's a bunch of me playing all these different instruments. And then I did a slideshow of one of my favorite fountains that I've visited, which is Lake Creek along the Beartooth Highway in Wyoming. And so there are fountain pictures, slideshow with the same music. Encouraging people, be creative, try to find new ways to do everything under the sun. So here it is, and I'll do a 3rd one also, Brethren We Have Met to Worship, which is a tune named Holy Manna, which is also, it fits on a DGD really well with the notes that go below. So here we go. Let's see what happens. Have I made enough noise yet? Let's see. right. I'm going to play a little bit more on the hammered dulcimer, and then we'll take a break for a little bit. We're going to do that, right? Have a little bit of an intermission, and then I'm going to ask you to join with me on a couple things with percussion in the last half, just to let you know it's coming. But I'm going to do Pachelbel's Canon Fantasia, which, you know, and we talked earlier today when we were talking about the chords. This piece, you can't do a canon on a solo hammer dulcimer. It can't be done. It's got to have all these moving parts. So I make it a fantasia on it. And then I'm going to follow that with two pieces. I'll do a brief verse of a tune that I was there to hear composed by my roommate back in 1978, Henry Smith. We were rooming together before our respective weddings, and he picked up his guitar and was playing the chords from Pachelbel's Canon, which had newly become popular at that time, and he started singing this song, "Give Thanks with a Grateful Heart." Have you ever, anybody know "Give Thanks with a Grateful Heart"? My roommate wrote that in my presence, and it's spread to the entire world, you know, since then, sung in every language group and everything. And then I'm going to follow with "The Broom of the Cowdenaws." Oh, the broom, the bonny, bonny broom, Scottish tune. And it's a homesick tune about a shepherdess who's away from home and really wishes she could be back in the fields of Scotch broom taking care of her grandfather's sheep, you know. And so I try to give it a homesick feeling. And it gives me it reminds me of C.S. Lewis, who was also a Scots-Irish guy and lived in Belfast, you know, and he talked in much of his work, he talked about an inconsolable longing in the human soul built in that is like a marker for that we need this joy with a capital J, he called it. He put capitals, you know, and he said he felt like it was a marker that heaven is our home, you know. And so I try to capture that in "Broom of the Cowdenaws." I talk too much, but here we go. Here comes the music. Thank you. Thank you.